something embarrassing?
Yeah.
It depends what it is.
So, trust me. Like this.
I saw that coming.
Surprise, huh? Everybody look here and say something. Community! You're bad at it. Nobody yell community. Shame.
Welcome everyone. Thank Jono. Thank you, Ona. Sorry. So, yeah, let's start. Welcome everyone again. Let's start that everyone will present himself where he works and the company and the community that he runs or manages. Yeah, Shimon, you have the mic, so.
Hi everyone, my name is Shimon Tolts. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Datree. And I'm one of the community leaders around our AWS community in Israel, which was founded in 2013. It is mainly around meetups. We made more than 85 meetups to date. And I'd love to tell you more about it.
I'm Fred Simon, one of the co-founder of JFrog. And so we build tools for communities around code and code communities. Doing it for more than 10 years.
Hi, I'm Demi. I'm the VP R&D and co-founder of Panorays, but not in that context. I'm also the co-founder of Big Things, which is a big data science and DevOps community, and GVG Cloud, and another community focused in entrepreneurship and tech, the OFAC Alumni Association, which is the unit that I served in the IAF. So I built a few communities. I think at Big Things we're 5,500 people right now, doing meetups and everything, and I would love to actually share from our experience also.
Jono, you have a lot of experience. Yeah, but,
I don't think I do.
well, yeah. Maybe can you tell us how big is the community of AWS and also Fred? Yeah.
So our community currently has more than 6,500 members. It is mainly around Tel Aviv. We meet once a month in Tel Aviv. And our number one KPI for our community is new first-time speakers. This is our number one goal. How do we make sure that people who come and listen in our meetups will then go on and speak at those meetups? And we have some case studies that we did and success stories of people who actually spoke for the first time in our community in Tel Aviv and then actually gave talks at reInvent, which is a huge event in Las Vegas of Amazon, and they became avid speakers since then.
Yeah, by the way, about the talk, you got some stuff back from Amazon? You got some kind of grants and swag and things like that from Amazon in your community, or you do most of it by yourself?
So we get a little bit of sponsorship around maybe t-shirts or something, but it's a non-profit. We don't make any money. We don't want to make any money. And we welcome anyone to come and help and contribute to our community. And it actually started because we had some problems and questions, and I would tell someone about how I built something in AWS, and then they would tell me, and then more people were interested about hearing, like how did you build your architecture in AWS, because it was the fastest growing cloud. So it was like, okay, so let's get together and talk about how we build stuff on AWS. And this is how it just emerged.
Good. Yeah, from our side, from the JFrog side, so we started on the kind of the growth of the open source packages. I mean, when we started, it looked like open source packages were really, really big, and there was a ton of them. When I see the amount going on the internet today, it was really ridiculous. So today, yeah, we are managing multiple, actually, petabytes of data from all our customers and those things. And it's really billions and billions of requests per month of all kind of people that are sharing code, putting code, and things like that. So just to be clear, what we do the thing that is useful for a piece of software is that we distribute the one that you can run, not the one that you can read, that is nice looking text that you need to compile before you can actually run. We distribute the one that you can run. it started as an underground kind of a movement. The first time I met Jono, by the way, we were talking about that with a partnership with Canonical, and he was managing. He was really proud of himself. He said, "I'm managing all the mochu." I don't know if you know what is the mochu, but he was the one managing all the master of the universe. And he said that with. I don't know if you remember. So, and as part of the community and code community, this is one part that is very difficult. Is actually how do you control the flow and the things that is going through, the quality of what is going through, and people that say, okay, let's say the latest one, the Go community. I'm doing some Go, and I'm looking at these Go things and Go community, and I'm getting a bunch of packages and a bunch of code from it. And I'm a brand new guy. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what is going on, and I'm a lot of time getting things that should not be there. And that's the main role of people like Canonical and Red Hat and big company like that. It's to try, and so we are at JFrog. We are basically creating the platform for the community to be able to control the in and out and the sharing of the finance. So really proud to be there.
But Fred, when we talked a year ago, you always mentioned that JFrog became what it became a lot of because of the community, and you got a big hug from the community from the beginning. Can you please tell us a little bit about this? What happened in the beginning with the community? It started with an open source, right? Or?
Yeah, we were open source right from the beginning, and it cost us quite a lot. I mean, today you have VCs coming and telling, but 10 years ago when you go around VCs and saying, I'm doing an open source developer tool, please give me money. Thank you.
Well, for 4 years or something, right? Until
Yeah. Huh? No, so, didn't know. But I mean, we knew what we were doing, and we knew what the community was providing back. And it's true that, well, about people and relationship. People they have kind of a big problem is that when they are happy with the product and it's useful for them, they have this tendency not to share. Okay, they say, oh, it's great, and it's great product. And there is also another effect by the impact of IBM and IBM tools and SAP tools and things like that. Also, when they find a workaround on a shitty piece of software, on a bad product, and they manage to, they don't share it also. So there is this kind of tendency. And by being open source in the early days, you get this feedback and this relationship. We start to lose it a lot more today. And the fact that you had to create a community around Amazon and things like that prove it that a community of users of a product and want to share, it needs to be created, it needs to be pushed forward because the only place where we feel the big hug from the community today is during events. So when we go to events and when we go to places, and then the people, they see your booth and they see you and they say, oh yeah, I really like, and why you never said it. People don't shout on the internet.
Yeah.
It's quite rare.
Yeah.
Shimon, anyone wants to add to this? Like the hug from the community. Fred mentioned how to control. So then please maybe tell us how you came up with two new groups or communities, or yeah, it's a term that they have a lot to say.
I'd like to
right?
actually clarify about that also. But I think the main focus is where it begins and what's the focus of the community. Like Shimon mentioned, again, our communities in plural are mainly focused and based about solving a problem of geeks. Okay? By the way, how many geeks are there here? Okay, what's the biggest problem of geeks? Socializing, they don't like people, okay? So basically what we wanted to do, I think like a common between all of us, is create some kind of platform for geeks to be able to communicate in the most comfortable manner for themselves. Okay, so how do you do that? It's not usually people like Shimon mentioned that really like to go on stages and talk to people and be like outgoing, right? So you kind of need to create the relevant platform for them to actually communicate upon. So in the beginning, it can be meetups, it can be forums, it can be a Facebook group, but these are all tools, okay? So in the beginning, you need to start, what's the focus? The focus for us, I think it's really common to all of us here, is creating some kind of platform, some kind of stage of some kind for geeks to actually present their own use cases. And for us, it was like big data, data science, DevOps, cloud, entrepreneurship, maybe things like that. And how you begin. And what's the focus really focuses you on the path to begin. I really like the presentation and the life cycle because, again, a product-based community, which this is like JFrog, GitHub, it started from a good product that they want to bring to the market, right? Around that, they're created maybe some kind of voluntarily, I don't know, community, but in general, they have budget, even if it's like $10 in the beginning. No, really, it's a budget.
Yeah.
But for us, it was like leveraging existing resources. For example, high-tech companies and geeks that want to present and trying to connect between them. So eventually, it's two paths that lead to some kind of existence of a community. And then eventually, who is leading that is maybe a commercial company behind that is the leader of some kind of community, like for example, JFrog supporting their own tool set. Or for us, maybe supporting people and trying to connect with companies. Again, our host in the beginning, it was our friends that had startup companies that wanted to present some things. Awesome, they have place, location, VCs, people that can facilitate, okay? And from the other side, our other geek friends that didn't know how to publicly speak or maybe have content to share. So we're kind of trying to leverage that because me, Demi, as a single person, a human being, I'm nothing. Okay, and the community and the strength of a lot of people that are combined to one cause, this is the real important thing in the empowerment, I think.
Jono mentioned that it has to be a day-to-day commitment, right? So Shimon, maybe tell us, or Jono. So
I have a question
you run a
to
company,
Jono.
so yeah.
So maybe I ask Jono. So what is the difference between a community that is founded by the community for the community, and where does where is the edge between a company that had so many support tickets, so they said, okay, maybe you help each other, and we call it a community.
Right.
So where is the,
Yeah. The way I tend to think about this is, community that forms for itself. The great thing about an environment like that is that, in every room that you go into, whether it's electronic or whether it's physical, there's a power balance, right? So we're already seeing this right now. The five of us are sat up on this stage, and there's a power dynamic between, everybody's watching us talking right now. So we've got the power. And it's the same thing if I go into a job interview, and the person on the other side of the desk, that person's got the power and I don't have the power. So I think in a community that is volunteer driven, that forms in itself, there's an equality of power that exists there. And then the community will often put in place, governance and whatever else to manage the power, who gets to make decisions about this, that, and the other. But it's all done in a collaborative, and in many cases a consensus-driven way, which is actually not a particularly great way of operating, but that's often how it is. With a company, of course, if you start out and you own the technology and all the people who are working on it, you're paying the bills of these people, you have all of the power. So when you construct a community, you have to bridge that power dynamic, I think, in a very approachable way. And again, going back to the comparison of the job interview, we've all been in those job interviews where the person who's interviewing you just uses it as their own personal bully pulpit to basically drag you over the coals. And they really thrive on that power. And the greatest interviews are where it just feels like you're talking to your mate down having lunch with somebody, and you're just having a conversation about this. So to me, it's that bridging that power dynamic is the most critical element, and I think part of this is really understanding the psychology of and the culture of the people who you work with, or who you want in the community. There's one tiny, very quick example. When I quit Canonical, I went to this company, X Prize, nothing to do with open source, and I was surrounded by all of these like moonshot thinking, social impact kind of, lots of like quite well-known people who want to, you know, put spaceships on other planets and stuff like that. And I missed the open source community because there's a pragmatism in the open source world where somebody thinks, yeah, this thing that I'm doing right now is a little bit frustrating, it's taking a while, I'll just build something. And we just roll our sleeves up and do it. And that is very culturally unique to the engineering kind of mindset. So I think it gave me an appreciation for that world. And I think if you build a community wrapped around a company, you have to really understand that mindset well. Otherwise, it'll just be an awkward kind of connection.
Yeah, so you asked me to disagree with you whenever I can.
Yes! Where am I wrong?
So about the community that built by itself, for me the most successful company that built by itself, it's usually around some kind of a guru or a leader. So there is Linus, there is you talk about the dispersion of Hudson. At the end of the day, it was personal. It was Kosuke. Okay, Kosuke Kawagachi. Even we had a meeting with him, by the way, to help him with his community when he was under Oracle. It was quite clear that it will not work, and he was going nowhere. And so he went away. He's such a nice guy. He's such a listener, and he doesn't use his power and his power dynamic at all. He's really, really connected to his community, but it revolved around him. Yeah. And when he crashed, so he said, okay, how we name? And he created Jenkins, and everybody followed him. Okay, so maybe one of the big differences between a company and a community is that the community is more people. You see the people a lot closer than the company. You always have the kind of a logo of the company between you and the people. So when you create a community. And the other thing that I want to disagree about is if you're creating a startup, and today, so most of the startups that do software, they say, okay, I'm going to do it open source because I want my software to be used. And I don't really care about the money of the VCs. When you are in this dynamic, if you focus the creation of your startup and you say, okay, I'm going to create a community, most of the time you will fail. Okay. The main thing that makes a community successful at this stage is a successful product. Okay, Redis and all the big success that you saw is successful product. And so the culture inside the startup and the culture inside the company is very open usually. It's, because it's an open source software, everybody, when you recruit someone and the first time he has to push his own code, and it's not reviewed by its manager, but it's reviewed by all its users and stuff like that. Yeah. Inside the startup, you can see the guy say, where the fuck I am. and by the way, in Israel, we still have, when we get people from the army and new recruit from the army, and you said, here, you're going to commit some code, and the entire freaking planet is going to review it. Right. It's startup nation or not, it's freaking scary for many people.
Can I just respond to that very quickly?
Wow, is that disagreement? You're going to have to try it out, Fred. I agree with everything you just said. I particularly agree with the point about the product. If you've got a product that people don't care about, you're not going to build a community. The challenge is that we've all seen products that we think are quite boring, and then they become incredible communities.
I actually want to, I don't know, I'm bad at this, I'm not disagreeing. I'm continuing something that you actually said, because I think one of the important things as community leaders of like tools or like tech is bridging. Okay, bridging between the relevant stakeholders that are around your community. For example, if you're inside an enterprise and trying to build a tech community, it will be bridging between the entities inside the organization. KPIs, things that you're measured upon, marketing. Basically what we're trying to do is sell, right? So how you like leverage everything to ramp up sales, right? But when you're doing like developer communities in general, which are not focused in some kind of product, who are the stakeholders, are the relevant people that we actually presented to companies and the geeks, right? So what's the KPI and what's the, I don't know, benefit of every one of them? Because when you come to a company and say, guys, I want to host my meetup group at your company, you need to understand where he's coming from. He has maybe budget, maybe not, maybe a location, maybe some kind of agenda, and you need to like maybe adjust his agenda to your relevant like vector that you want to move things forward. And the guys presenting also have their own agenda, right? And again, we said that companies want to sell what people really hate, salespeople. Okay, and when they are trying to be sold to, they are leaving. Okay, and you have like really high churn of developers, because these are like the people, the entities that are part of the developer communities, and people leave communities which do a lot of marketing and sales.
Yep.
But again, the context of people, that when you come with the developer community, I want to sell to them, and then you actually lose them. Okay, and eventually what ends up is a company, or maybe a consultancy company or something, forming a community, which is an overabused word, okay?
Yes.
And once they actually do that, why? Because they want clients, right? And what they do is create a lot of sales content, and they're surprised why their community is dead after 2 meetups, and nobody actually wants to come there, because you're not giving value to your prospects, okay? And once you understand that and actually bridge between these two worlds of maybe I'm selling something, but I want to first give value, then it will be much easier to create a community, to keep it going, okay? Because this is one of the hardest parts there.
Shimon, yeah?
So I totally agree. I'll tell you a story. One of my co-founders, which is actually how I met him, and now we co-founded a company together, is through the community. His name is Arthur, and he actually founded the AWS user group in Israel back in 2013. And when he wanted to do a meetup, he asked for some place. He asked for some companies to host them, and no one wanted to host them because no one knew what a meetup is. And then he met some macher who told him, you can pay 2,000 shekels, and then we're gonna charge you 1,000 shekels for the beer and the pizza, and you can have an event. It was like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. And like people didn't even understand what's going on at this point. And now, because specifically in the space of my community, it's around cloud computing, which is like crazy. So the amount of companies and the amount of consulting partners who are trying to be heard and trying to get customers is crazy. So every day I need to push people and trying to sell stuff at my meetups. So what we actually do today is before someone comes to speak, I review their speaker notes and I tell them, you're not allowed to open your product's dashboard, or you're not allowed to come and pitch your consulting company. You can come and talk about the challenge that you had, how you overcome it, which AWS services did you use in order to do that, and then people will understand that you're an expert in this field and will want to talk to you. So they will have the benefit. I agree with Demi. Everyone will benefit, but it will be in a light way and not selling to your face. And I see some other communities that have meetups, they even have WhatsApp groups, and sometimes I come in and I post that we have a meetup around AWS Redshift and come learn more, and they go like, delete your post. Why are you advertising your community? I'm like, I'm inviting people to learn about the AWS service. Like, no, you need to pay money in order to post here. I'm like, okay, so
Where is the line?
it's crazy. I think that now it's a jungle, and I think that there are like soul communities that are from the community by the community. There are companies, software companies, which is like it's better, it's easier because they have a product, and I think that the most problematic thing is companies that their value is consulting, and it is, at least from my point of view, it's devastating to communities because people go like, I don't want to go to a meetup, they're going to sell me something. And I think that it's just like giving a bad name to different meetups and communities.
Yeah. I think one of the things that both of you touched on, which I think is really important to highlight here, is really understanding the realistic value that a community member wants to get out of something. So, when you go to a meetup, you want to learn something, you want to meet people. You don't want to be sold something necessarily. And I think one problem we see with a lot of companies who fail at building communities is they think about everything that they want. Like, I want people to provide support for my customers and users, and I want people to build technology and this, that, and the other, but they don't think about the value that the community member wants. Or if they do think about it, they think about it in a kind of a bizarro Stanley Kubrick alternative universe. And they don't think about what people realistically want. Like, as one such example, I think just a lot of community members, they just want fun. Like they want to do something interesting, but they want to have a good time when they're doing it. As one, so you have to architect things around that value. No one thinks to themselves, oh, the value I want to get out of this community is signing up for your newsletter. Nobody ever thinks that. And I think it informs all of the content you produce as well. Like the amount of companies who, well, we'll put out a blog post, an interview with our CEO. No one cares. But a tutorial for how to do something interesting with your technology, okay.
So I think it's a community meetup, right? So let's move to the Q&A you had, and we also had Q&A, so it's a big Q&A. So please, anyone that has a question, yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Maya. Facebook recently started this new pilot where they're paying selected community managers. I don't know if you heard about this. They took like 100 community managers of their different Facebook groups all across the world, and they're actually paying them a proper salary, like a full-time salary. I'm wondering for those of you up here who voluntarily run your community group, what do you think about that model? Do you think that it's a good model? Do you think it's better to keep it on a volunteer basis? Do you think it's going to change the space and the platform? Which I'd love to hear. What's your thoughts?
Who is that? Who you said is
Facebook.
Facebook. Facebook Spain.
Yeah,
Facebook kind of just started this new pilot, and I'm wondering if you think it's going
people
to change the space. So.
I think the mic is dead. I actually know two people from that specific program, but okay. I'll start with the volunteering part. Most people, when they come to meetups, for example, like of GDG Cloud, they start talking to me as if I'm paid by Google, and blah blah blah, and yeah, because when you work at Google, I'm like, no, I'm not a Google employee. And they're like, no, they're paying you something, right? I'm like, no, they're not paying me anything. And then I get the look of, dude, are you an idiot? Or what? Why are you doing that? And again, this is like to combine with my full-time job and other things that I might want to do, like sleep. But again, it's a problem, okay? And when you're, like what Shimon and I spoke about also was like, that's a bit of the difference between community that is backed by a company or like a volunteer-based community, in which basically you're not getting paid and you don't have the capacity. And this is problematic for your community because then you can't move things forward. So this, again, they're not getting salaries, they're getting a budget. This is the difference, okay? They can do whatever they want with their money, and they have to present some kind of business plan. I think that it's a good motivator in general, but it's something that taking an individual and making him some kind of a leader of some kind of thought, he has a community already. It's not something that he's trying to form. And then he's getting more like funds and things to move his things forward. And this is a bit of a difference of three guys that want to have fun. This is basically like most communities start from that. Or like at least we want to share data, we want to do something, and right now we hit some kind of barrier, some kind of blocker, in which we don't have the effort, the time, the money to actually move things forward to the next notch and actually do something more impactful. And this is what Facebook gave them. They gave them like 2 tiers, I think. One was $1 million a year, and they need to do something with the budget, and it's not only for their own salary. And I think like 50 something that they give $50,000 also. And it's a good thing. It's a good promotional thing also for Facebook, but I think that Google are doing that also when they're doing the Launchpad and the mentoring programs and all of these kind of things, basically supporting communities. And trust me, it's really hard to explain the ROI, the return of investment of these things to your corporate. Again, this is a high-level manager that decided that he wants to support communities. He's putting some kind of budget, $1 million or I don't know how much, and that's it. He knows it's a sink. He won't get anything out of it, but if you think of it like a bit to the future, look, when I'm speaking about Google, what do you think about Google? What? In Google we trust? Wow, we trust that? No, I'm just kidding. No, but really, you're thinking like an innovative company, talking about tech. Basically, you don't know what Google is doing, specifically in Israel also. But this is the thought, right? What?
I want to disagree with you.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I completely disagree with Demi, and I will never take money from AWS, and I will never take money from anyone. Because when someone puts money in my pocket, I'm in their pocket. And I'm not gonna do that. And actually, our last meetup was bad things on AWS. Bad practices that people do, and things that don't work, that you shouldn't do. And we said, this is crap, this is a bad service, this doesn't work good.
That Amazon is doing. Bad things that Amazon is doing, like EFS pricing. We didn't talk about it.
I don't know, like pricing. Again, everyone is free to talk about like anything they want, and every time someone presents something, they go and they say all the good things, and then I tell them like, you need to put in 2 slides of like what's bad, what didn't work. And I actually had one person say that like he was trying to build a solution, then he started building it on service A, and then he hit some limit, and then he talked to a solution architect that didn't know this limit, and he sent him to another service, and another service, and another service, and he was like, guys, I'm disappointed with the solution architects, and this is what he said on our meetup. And that's okay, because that's relevant feedback to AWS. And like, read the limits page of every service before you start building it. This is his, this is what he was trying to evangelize to everyone, and he gave his, his story. So I think that paying community managers is not a good thing, and Amazon also doesn't want to do it.
Okay, so wait, I'm going to disagree also, and you're going to disagree. Yeah. So at JFrog we acquire a company which is called Conan. I don't know if some of you use the Conan C++ package manager. And so in the C++ community, they were really retarded for a very, very long time, and they never had a package manager. And we find those 2 great guys working in Spain, and they were really willing, and their community was growing like crazy, and they were doing that on their night time. And when you have a successful open source project, that is actually, and by the way, JFrog was created like that. It was an open source software, and it started to grow. And we said, okay, there is 2 paths. Either we make it, we quit our job and we spend all our time without any money to create a community and try to grow the project like Linus, but I don't know where is the resources. Or either you need to find a way to pay for your family and for your kids and still have an happy community. Okay, they are receiving tons and tons of requests of packages and package manager, and it was literally killing them physically. So they needed, and we acquired them.
What did you acquire? When you say acquired them, what do you mean?
No. We promoted the community. We put a lot of money in the community. We marketing promoted the Conan package manager so that people will start to use it, and we started to pay people from the community to classify good packages and to make good quality stuff so that they will not have to do that on their 9 time and that. Yes, we.
So it's like you didn't buy a company, you sponsored the project.
Yeah, well, they are JFrog employees today, but I don't know. It's like when you buy MySQL, I don't know how at the end of the day they get the salary from JFrog and they spend 100% of their time doing something pure open source and pure community. So, and for us, as a company, the only thing that we want is to have a C++ manager that is reasonably good. Okay, and it's actually quite good, and it helps our customers, and it helps everybody. And they have no other KPI than making their community successful, which they were doing before. So.
And do you say what is their roadmap now?
Well, the community is deciding. So roadmap, it's a very, very good question. I let you know. It's true. The roadmap is where the friction. Yeah, but if the community really wants something, they can do it, and we do the quality and we do the PR. So, by the way, in terms of community management, Docker, for example, one of the main issues of Docker is that Docker is a community first. Okay, 80% of the developers are Docker Inc. The only thing they do is pull request review and pull request acceptance. They don't freaking write code. They just accept pull request and ingest pull request from the community. So their roadmap for making money and their roadmap for actually extracting stuff from companies that want to use Docker, well, this is where they are today. So yeah, there is no black, no white.
I'll be very quick. In answer to your question, I think it really depends. My general view is, I think generally it's good to fund activities that community members perform, so help give them money for sponsorship or this, that, or the other. But I don't see anything wrong with paying community managers, so long as they're very well respected and proven in the community. So any other person could look at them and say, well, yeah, I mean, they're fantastic. They do what they do, and we support that. And so long as there's real openness and transparency around that. I think it really depends on the context.
Kosuke and the Cloudbees.
Yeah.
Kosuke is still an amazing, the CTO of Cloudbees.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ali, and I wonder what we can do as leaders in the community to be more acceptable for underrepresented groups, and they make sure they feel welcome and happy.
Can I start? So you're asking for white guys.
It's his fault.
It is his fault. I'm a big believer that this needs to really start from the leadership angle. I think we need to have leaders that are opening and welcoming to all groups and facilitate. You know, meritocracy, I think, is the North Star. It's not a framework, and I think it's good for us to focus on that. And yes, there's a lot of talk and discussion about codes of conduct and things like that, which I think are very important components of an overall inclusive environment. But to me, what really builds a more diverse environment is when the people who are in those positions of power that I mentioned earlier on are facilitating their power in a way that is inclusive of people. It never stops focusing on quality, but it's always focusing on that quality can come from any number of areas. And I can't think of a way of doing that unless you have people who actively think about that in the leadership capacity. The other thing that I would say as well is building a culture in your community of having a conversation about diversity from a non-confrontational perspective. The amount of discussion we see today where people just want to pick fights with each other about this topic, and I would much rather say, okay, we don't have enough diversity in our community, what are some practical ways in which we can think about this, as opposed to focusing on what are the ways in which, why are we in the case that we're in right now, rather focus on how we can be pragmatic and fix it.
You all agreed with starting awareness, like this panel,
right,
for example. So I think the best way to deal with underrepresented community is start with awareness. Who is speaking in front of us,
yeah,
and like specific more.
Yeah.
So maybe next time you'll see more
Yes.
women and other people also.
Right.
I really have to respond to that. Really, I am trying to handpick and talk to people. Again, like the approachness and possibilities of communicating with us. This is what I'm trying to create in all of the communities and all of the things in the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and startup. It's really hard. So I really asked for also women, and what you said about like other people, come to us. Okay, again, I think we're approachable. Send, I don't know, like mail pigeons. I accept everything. I will help.
Okay, I want to answer that because I like to ride the diversity ticket at the events that I lead. First of all, a matter of mentorship. Not everyone was born for the stage, and many times they do want to share knowledge, but it's a matter of supporting, and there needs to be a zero tolerance approach within the community to any kind of snark, disparaging. People in underrepresented communities, the people riding the diversity ticket are judged 10 times more harshly when they get up on the stage, especially women. All the men sitting in the audience are waiting for them to have a slip of the tongue and say something that's a little bit silly. So really it all comes from being welcoming, kind, friendly, and really wanting these people to get up on stage to empower other people within the community to actually speak up and show themselves. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah.
And when you are a star in the community, do definitely take the mentoring approach.
We talk a lot about culture and changing the culture, and at the end, like you said, it's by example. It's the main people that are visible. They need to be very direct and very strict whenever there is something that doesn't go the way it should. And I don't know. Me, I see a lot of improvement, and I want to be optimistic about where this community is going with what's going on with Linux. I mean, at JFrog, it's just freaking amazing what's going on inside our environment. But it's true that for online community, it's still it's not fun. That's me.
Hi, I'm Tova. I have a feeling that successful communities, especially in the developer space, involve an understanding of the problem that needs to be solved and being on the cutting edge of new technologies. What happens when you're spearheading a community that's in a very niche market, or in the niche of a niche market, which is where I'm at right now, to the point where you often have to make developers aware that this technology has jumped from the theoretical to the actual, and not insult their egos in the process. I'm not out to insult their egos, but it can be hard sometimes to watch developers who think they know everything about their space, but then you have to prove to them that this theoretical concept was brought down to reality and how do you provide value in that regard.
You're in quantum computing?
And I am in multi-party computation and crypto security. That's all.
So I'm a strong believer in, like, at the end of the day, if people are interested and if they're drawn to it and they want to share things about it, you need to give them the platform. But you can't like shove it and make it like happen. It has to be organically. But you're asking about a positioning and marketing question of a company, I think, because like I will tell you, write blog posts, do awareness, you know, it's marketing thing that I do. We're in the GitOps space. It's also something new, and we're building a policy engine on top of GitHub. It's like, how can you even do that? I meet customers like that. I had no idea it's possible. So we have the same challenge, but I'm not sure it's a community challenge. I think it's more of a company, I don't know.
I would like to add to that also a question, okay? What's the size of the community that we're talking about? How many people do you have in the community? 10, 20, 100? Give me an estimate.
40.
40, awesome. You don't need to do any education, you don't need to do any marketing. Go and meet with the 40 people. That's it. Understand what are their pains, what they need in a matter of value. Because people are talking like, let's put funds, let's put budget in it, I don't know, 40 people. Literally like meeting them face to face, I think would do magic. And at least understanding what are they talking to. Developers in general think that they know all, okay? I'm literally stupid, because of that I'm learning a lot of things all of the time. So for me it's really awesome. But again, you need to understand. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Natasha. So you've spoken a lot about large communities where you have community members that are helping to manage and facilitate. So can you talk, for those of us that are actually building communities from the ground up, can you talk about the internal teams, so developer experience, developer relations, advocates, and evangelists, and how you build those teams in your companies?
For you guys.
I think this varies a lot in my mind, depending on the kind of company it is, and you know, like a very large company that's doing something will take a separate approach to, for example, a new startup. And the good, I think a critical component is reporting line. So the biggest challenge here, I think, is that because communities are so cross-functional, you need product and marketing and engineering and all these different pieces involved. The team that group reports into is only one piece of the puzzle, right? So for example, when I worked at Canonical, I think one of the smartest things that they did was they had me reporting into the engineering team. So I was on the same team as the engineering managers, but it was a very technical community. It made a lot of sense. But in other companies, you'll have someone reporting to marketing. To me, I always think of like three primary roles. The director of community will be someone who's very strategic in nature. And sadly, there's not a lot of those people around in the industry, and I think it's getting better, but it's not enough that we'd like to see, because a lot of people I work with are struggling to hire those roles. And then you've got community managers who are very good on a day-to-day basis. They work with their community members. And then you've got evangelists whose talent is getting out there and banging the drum and making noise. I think you always need to start out with someone who can look at that strategic approach, if possible, if you can find one of those people, and then have them reporting into, let's say, a marketing team, but make sure there is an implicit workflow in place where the way I like to do it is where every 6 months you produce your strategy for the next 6 months, and you say, the people who will be involved in that strategic development, yes, it will be the marketing team, but it will also be the product team and the engineering team. And that you all agree on a blueprint for what we're going to do in the next 6 months. So even though you're reporting to that one team, everybody's got responsibilities that feed into that. Because I think if you don't do that, the risk that you get is that I think in new communities, it starts out and everybody's excited about it. And then people just go back to their day jobs and they think of the community person who's the ambassador for that world. And then it falls apart. So having that every 6 months, it repeats that workflow, that normality around strategic development.
And when he leaves, everything falls apart. Eventually, when you have somebody leading that.
Right.
Yeah, we during the growth, so JFrog, we multiply ourselves by 2 year over year. And so during the growth of the company, we had a lot of issue of where to put the people inside the company that are basically dedicated to community and community building and community responsibility. And we had some issue with the marketing because once we started to measure good KPI on the marketing, also the company happens, the KPI of marketing and the funnel and what they were measuring, the community was a huge pearl and it just didn't fit and it didn't go there at all. So today it's under the technology and pure technology because most of our community is about integration and interfaces. But this, at the end of the day, needs to be all the way to the top. I mean, everybody needs to know that there is no, I have huge fight, me internally, every time someone is trying to put a dollar sign on top of a community strategy and community marketing and things, because that makes a mess. Okay, there are going to be, okay, there is some benefits, but it's actually at the board level or even higher. Inside the company itself, if you start to put dollar sign on the return on investment of your community investment, you mess it up very, very, very fast.
I just add a small thing before Rona's final question is that usually when you have people responsible for community, what they're trying to do is also reach out to cross communities in order to do to get cross people. When someone approaches me from marketing or DevRel or whatever, I just throw him out the bus. I'm not going to talk to you. Send me an engineer. You need to work internally with your teams to qualify your engineering teams to be able to approach communities and talk to them. I tell them, our next talk will be with an engineer. I will not talk to you. You can't submit any talk titles or anything. I will only talk to engineers. So this is maybe something that can help understand that they're not the ones that they need to influence, not to actually do it.
So just one thing regarding the fact that there are no women on the stage. I just want to know, 5 minutes before you ask the question, and Iwan and I were kind of talking, oh my God, what did we do? We have to change it. So we apologize, will never happen again, okay? Trust us, we really need
I have to say something about it. In the world of community, actually, most of the people in the world of community are women. It's actually there.
Not that community.
Not that
community.
I want to ask, so I'm actually doing what probably is build called communities. I'm working with a lot of young people, and not like 20 something, but exporting them to new technologies. And one of the issues is what is the KPI? So how do we measure success? And I'm sure that everyone is kind of like passionate about it. There is someone in the organization who's always kind of becoming very cynical, yeah, there is nothing happening. So how do you prove that? Or how do you know for yourself that what you're doing is successful? What are the KPIs, especially if it's kind of long-term kind of KPIs that you're looking for?
I think a lot of it depends on the kind of community you're building. So for example, the way I tend to think about it is not necessarily the only way to think about it is we identify what kind of participation we want to see. So let's say you build in a developer community, so you want active participation from developers. I tend to segment that into 2 groups. I call it inner and outer. So inner is people who participate in an open source project. So they need to feel part of the team. They need to feel part of the group that's building the project, which requires a lot of nuance between the company that's company involved. And then outer communities, to me, are people who build applications that run on a platform, such as people who build Android apps that run on the Android platform. So for example, for an outer community, KPIs there, in my mind, are going to be, for example, not just the number of the applications that are being submitted and the number of new releases that are occurring, but what is the average mean time of an application being reviewed? How quickly can someone be measured going up the on-ramp? So from downloading the SDK to building something of some value. To me, it's not just, the KPIs often we focus on are content-based, but it's also the duration and the success of all of those different pieces. So when I put up the on-ramp earlier on, one of the things I always recommend is where possible, it's not always possible, but try to make sure that you can measure the transition from each stage of the on-ramp. Because then if you know, for example, if someone gets stuck at stage 3, that's the thing you need to focus on. But then it gets a lot more complicated for inner communities in open source, because yes, we can measure pull requests, stuff like that, and that's a great way of getting a list of your top 10 rock stars. But I think this gets back to the previous conversation about underrepresented groups, or people who are just less familiar with the technology, is that's not a great way of measuring when people are struggling, or when you've got problems in interpersonal relationships and communities. So I think the tricky thing there is that you can't really measure relationships with computers. You need good people who can look through an objective lens to see that. And the question that came up earlier on about a small community, the wonderful thing about a small community of 40 people is you can know everybody, you can observe those things. So I think it really does depend. The most important thing in my mind is set your KPIs and then try to be a bit ambitious in getting over them. This is where the Google objective key results methodology, I'm a huge fan of, because the point is that you overshoot it. And if you only get 60% of the way there, you should still feel proud of yourself, but we always push it.
I actually thought about that same question when you're doing a volunteer community, and specifically you don't ever have time to invest in it, but you still do that, okay? So again, I'm a startup founder, so I know KPIs and how important it is to set goals and everything. I thought of a KPI, and what came in mind is actually how many times people ask me if everything is okay with me. And why? Because I kind of set a standard of doing things continuously and consecutively, doing a meetup every month, uploading the videos immediately 2 days after they recorded. I bring a camera by myself, and when I get asked, when this doesn't happen, is everything okay with me? I know that this is successful and people are wanting the content. And keeping things continuously going is the hard part, and not only improving, because improving is super important if you have the goal of improving, but if everything is okay, I'm not saying everything is okay, but again, still, this is some KPI that came up in mind, and again, because of that, I know that I'm creating value that people actually want to consume. And this is really awesome that we were able to actually create a platform for geeks to collaborate and to share information and to feel comfortable.
I can give an example from the other side. I usually work with the engineers that are very eager to adopt new technologies, and then they go are we going to use Angular or React or Vue.js? Vue is really cool. Let's build it in Vue. And then I need to go and assess, is this technology going to take off or not? And I think there's a difference. Of course, there's a direct correlation between people that are committing and putting pull requests. But I think that it's not always a direct correlation between the amount of people contributing and the adoption by the people. Because if you look at, I don't know, React or Angular, the usage is exponentially greater than the amount of people contributing to it. And then you need to be an oracle, not a company. And you need to say, is this the right decision for my company to take? I look at Google Trends, I ask some leaders in my field. Also, one of the other communities that I lead is me and a good friend of mine, Or Hilch from Skyline AI. We co-founded a CTO club, we call it, which is technical co-founders that lead companies. And we meet once a month, and then I can ask the group, what do they think? And I try to assess.
It's a great group, support group.
By the way, for this group, we saw that we had no women because there are no many CTOs women. So we actually reached out and I posted on Facebook, I'm looking for CTOs that are female to join our group, because it was very, very hard, but eventually we found them.
And there are quite a few.
Yeah. There's still a minority, yeah, but.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Shimon, Fred, Demi, Jono.